Are you a successful IT professional and need help optimizing your compensation plan, navigating your taxes, investments? It's time to rewire and retire. Listen in as Mike gets you the answers you need to move forward. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Rewire and Retire with Mike Guarino. I get to start this podcast off a little differently than we normally do, and that's by singing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Okay, that's enough. I'm not going to say happy birthday, Mr. President.
Yay. Thank
Mike,
you,
it's your
Eric.
birthday. Happy, 52nd, right?
Maybe. Yeah, it's 52.
52.
Yep.
All right.
Yepper.
So,
Eric, I thought today we would take a walk down memory lane.
all right. Hopefully you can do that at your age.
I'm trying. Yeah, I did. I actually take I take brain boosters. Not that I need them.
Nice.
It's more like just to make sure I don't need them.
Well, that's maybe I should start because I spend half the time wandering around my house wondering what I'm looking for. Right? And that's how I spend a lot of my time. That's how I get most of my exercise at this point.
Start with brain booster, and then everything takes form from there, right?
Got it. All right. Sounds good. So what are we reflecting on? I mean, are we talking about the entire 52 years? I mean, that'll be a long podcast, my man.
Yeah, no, and I would not do that to our listeners. That would be torturous. So I really going back to like the last 14 when I started my career. So I retired from IT back in 2006 and took a jump into what I'm doing now, which I absolutely love, and financial planning and investing. So I can't be happier. And I just kind of wanted to talk about how this business has, the industry, I shouldn't say the business, how this industry has evolved just in the last 14 years that I've been in it, and kind of what we see coming down the pike. So I thought it'd be interesting for the listeners to kind of see the evolution of planning and investing, and then kind of what we as advisors see on the horizon. And I'm just wondering if the listeners think the same thing. So I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny that you're saying this now because just in the last 6 months, we've seen so much change, necessary change, right? I mean, and so it'll be interesting to reflect back on that time, and I'm interested to kind of hear your insights.
Yeah. So since we're getting retrospective, and I'm going to just move back a little bit, I'm not going to talk about financial planning and investing yet. I got to go over, I talked to you about this offline before we went on air. I thought we did a really good podcast last podcast. As a matter of fact, my first podcast we joke about, right? It was like a hostage video, just being held for ransom somewhere. And I was like, okay, I got to be more animated. I got to do this, got to do that. Just the kind of stuff that people don't realize goes into the pre-work of this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought we did a great podcast. We did that mini-series, right? Financial planning, 5-stage mini-series. I loved it. I thought we did a great job. And I really thought we wrapped it up well last time we were on. And I listened to it, which to my, ignorance or to my fault, I didn't listen to many of the other ones. I mean, I kind of listened to them, but not really. And this one I said, it was a great one. Let me listen to it. And I listened to it. And I to myself, I said, man, are you on Quaaludes? Like, what? Why do you sound like somebody rubbed you down with lavender and like you feel after like a really good massage? And I'm like, yeah. And that's not me. I just want to come off like I just sound so subdued to myself. So I spoke to some people about it, and you actually, Eric, and I appreciate it. You said, are you standing when you're doing the podcast? I'm like, no, I'm on the radio. Why do I have to stand? And I'm standing now, and I hope, and I will continue to stand until I'm satisfied with the way I sound and come across. So I want to apologize to the listeners of this podcast that if I sounded subdued or recently massaged with lavender and half asleep, I'm going to remedy that. So that's all I wanted to kind of correct from the last bunch of podcasts we've done.
Yeah, and to all the masseuses out there, we have nothing against full body massages. That's not what he's saying at all.
No, they make me
sleepy. There's just a time and
sleepy.
place for that.
They make me sleepy, and I sound like I'm half asleep when I did. At least I thought I did. So wake up, everybody. Here I am, and I have a coffee in my hand. I'm ready to go, Eric. I am ready for this.
All right. So where do we start?
Well, we'll start about 14 years ago. When I came into the industry in 2006, it's just massively, massively changed, and you kind of wouldn't think so. And I think the individual investors and financial planning clients probably don't realize all the progression and all the changes that are the evolution of this industry, really. And I want to kind of bring everybody up to speed on kind of what's gone on. So way back in the day when investing started happening, and this goes back to the days that Wall Street started, right? Way, way back. You had to be licensed, which that hasn't changed, to trade stocks and do investing. But what it was like a commission-driven business, right? Somebody wants to buy GE, 100 shares of GE. There'd be a commission made by the registered representative, right? The advisor, if you will. Not so much an advisor, but a registered rep. Somebody who had a license that got paid commissions to trade stocks. And that was the big thing. And that's where the term stockbroker, making air quotes, stockbroker came from. And what's interesting about that is that was the way it was for a really long time. People wanted to buy investments on Wall Street. They paid a stockbroker a commission to get in them. And that was the way it was for a really long time. Even 14 years ago, when I started, it was kind of like that. People would buy investments, not necessarily stocks all the time, but they would buy mutual funds, stocks, bonds. And the advisor, the rep, would get paid a commission on that. Okay, great. I understand that. This business has evolved now where you're not necessarily getting a commission, but maybe an advisory fee to work with your clients. And the difference is they don't pay an upfront to get into their investments. They kind of pay you as you go. And that's, I think, a really good evolution, because what we can do then is, depending on the platform and depending on the client, they're in investments that the advisor kind of gives its best ideas and subs pieces in and out depending on market climates, etc. We rebalance the portfolios. We're actively engaged with the clients, so they hear from us a bunch of times a year to tell them how we're doing and report back and see if there's any changes. So that's been an awesome evolution in this field for me. That's what I've seen. Where we've been 14 years ago and where we are now has gone from commissions to more advisory. Now bolt on financial planning to that, Eric. It's pretty interesting here, because financial planning is the Rosetta Stone of the person you're doing the planning for. You're going to figure everything out if you do a thorough job. And by doing that and bolting it together with an investment strategy, it's really hand in glove, which is where we're going now. Like we're no longer into the commission part of things. We're into having a relationship and making sure that the plan and the investments are in alignment. And that really puts us on the same side of the table as the client, which not necessarily was the way back in the commission days. I would hope every advisor did that, but let's face it, there were some that didn't. There's been movies made about those people that didn't do that. So long story short, we've gone from commission-based to advisory and planning, and now looking further out on the horizon, there's a lot of people talking about subscription models, right? Are you familiar with those?
I am not.
Oh, interesting. So I'll talk about that. So commission to advisory and planning to subscription. So now basically for the advice and the planning and the investment strategies, a lot of advisors are switching over to like either a flat fee or a subscription base, which we have now, which is great. Our broker-dealer LPL Financial is allowing us to do subscription-based services for our clients, which is really, really good. Because, listen, not everybody that comes through the door needs the Cadillac, right? And not everybody wants, something less than that. There's a lot of space in between. So what we're able to do now is really figure out what the client's looking for, what kind of service they want from the advisor, and build a subscription base on the amount of effort, energy, and time it's going to take us to give the client all the wonderful things that they want. So that's been the evolution, and that's kind of where we're going, which I think is really, really on the client side of things.
So let me ask you this about the subscription service itself. How long does that last? I mean, I've always kind of thought of the relational part of this, and it sounds like there's still a relationship there, but I mean, with subscriptions, like we subscribe to maybe HBO for a little while, then we cancel it. How does that work? Right. I mean, we don't want them canceling when they still need your help.
Sure. That's a great question. So, as long as the value is there, right? Because the subscription is really based on what the client is telling you they need, right? How often do you want to hear from me? Do you want a financial plan involved with this or not? Is there an investment strategy that you're going to want? Are we going to manage these assets for you? all that is kind of figured out ahead of time.
Gotcha. Okay.
You get it out. So that's where we can come up with a customized number for you. Look, we're not being greedy and we're not giving the shop away. We want to do what's fair for you. We want to do what's fair for us. We want to get paid for our time and services like anything else you'd expect. So it's really an evolution in the industry that's gone from commissions to advisory fees and planning to more of a subscription model. Hopefully, if it's dialed in right from the get-go, there will be no cancellations because people realize I'm getting X for Y, right?
Absolutely.
I'm getting something for my money.
Yep. The value is there, and that's what's going to drive that service. So no, that's
Exactly.
fantastic. So what else have you seen in the last 14 years?
Well, when we started in the business, Guarino Wealth Management, my company, is since 2008. More specifically, June 9th of 2008.
Ouch.
So you know what happened, right? So literally we opened up our doors in June, and then the monster of the subprime mortgage crisis hit Wall Street, hit everywhere. And that just decimated means you lost 10%. I don't know what the word is for like 40%.
Obliterated.
Yeah, obliterated. That happened right while we were opening up our doors. And oh my gosh, it was so painful.
Yeah.
But we weathered that financial crisis. It wasn't the first. It won't be the last. And some things that stick out were after 2008, the big market recovered, and then we kind of went sideways for a while. And there's this evolution in the business that it always likes to retest. And the most recent one was COVID, right? We just saw the market plummet about 30%. Depends on what index you look at, S&P 500, the Dow, the NASDAQ. Man, did we get nailed a couple months ago. But right now, as things look, everything's pretty much back to even. The weird part, Eric, is the world's a different place now. It really feels different.
All right, so that brings me to my next obvious question. You got in 08. You went through some major stuff in 08 and 09.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it wasn't the first. It's not going to be the last. Well, it wasn't the last because you just talked about how COVID and the pandemic have really hit the market, and it's just gone crazy up and down from there.
Changed the world.
It did change the world. And so those changes, I guess, is what I want to focus on. How has this changed your business and the model that you're using?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah, so honestly, it hasn't changed us at all because our niche is IT executives and professionals, and they're tech-savvy people, obviously, by nature. We've always prided ourselves on using Zoom or GoToMeeting or all the video conferencing stuff that's available. So we're able to collaborate regardless. A lot of our business, because we're nationwide, really, a lot of our business is not just central in New Jersey, but across the country. So we've always embraced technologies to collaborate with people from all parts of the country and even some clients that we have overseas in Europe. So my point is we've always kind of had that technology working for us. It's funny, right? We used Zoom for a long time before it became, air quoting, Zoom that everybody knows now, right? We've been using it for a long time. We didn't really think it was great technology. It's a great app. It works awesome for us. We just made that part of our business. It was already built in. It's new to a lot of people now. Like my son's, he's going into a freshman year. My youngest son, going to be a freshman this year in high school. And they gave him an option. You want to come in and wear a mask all day and get your temperature scanned or all that? And he's like, Dad, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm like, Marco, don't worry about it, buddy. Don't worry about it. If you want to take the first semester at home, because I'm hopeful that we get a cure or this thing kind of goes to bed soon, the whole COVID-19 thing.
Yeah.
But I'm saying let's just start out this way, start out at home. So a lot of the teachers are embracing the technology now. So we've always had that built in. So it really hasn't changed the way we do it. Yes, to be honest, we don't do the face-to-face appointments much anymore, although they're coming back now. We've done more the last couple of weeks than we've had pretty much the whole year during the COVID-19 crisis. But we're getting back on our feet and things are getting back to normal. I'm actually looking out my window here in Denville and I see lots of cars in the parking lot across the street, lots of cars on the road. So I think as a society, we're getting back into the norm. But COVID has changed the landscape, and I find that more people are wanting to collaborate on these video conferencing apps and things like that, which is great because, look, it's a time saver. Eric, I don't know if do you work from home or not?
I do, yeah.
All right. So from working from home, and I believe me, I did not when I was an IT manager. I work from home a lot. My staff work from home a lot. You get way more done. Most people, I can't say that for everybody, but most people get way more done when they're working from home because you don't have the commute. My routine was I'd wake up, get a cup of coffee, log in, check my email. All that happened before my start time. So you're actually becoming more efficient when you're working from home and you don't have that commute. And I never took a lunch. So I was basically in front of my screen for 8 or 9 hours a day doing my job, and it makes things more efficient. So I embrace the technology. I like the technology. We definitely are here for face-to-face if people want it, but virtual face-to-face is extremely important, and it really, really helped out through this whole pandemic.
Yeah, and I agree. Face-to-face is great and needed for certain team aspects, so on and so forth. However, just personally, my wife is also working from home, and she loves it. And the reason is because she is a workhorse. I mean, she grinds, and she is a huge problem solver for the company, does amazing work all the time. And what drove her nuts all the time was when she was at the office, people would stop by just to chit chat because they weren't busy, but she was, right? And she mastered, and I can't do this, Mike, I just can't do this. She mastered the ability to work and do everything that she needed to do while listening to them and nodding and saying, or whatever, the story that they're telling her. But she was still able to work. I can't do that. If somebody comes and talks to me, I'm just like, everything else stops. Hey, what's going on? I just don't have that discipline. But she is getting so much more accomplished, and yeah, she's loving it. So I think there's good and bad about working from home and good and bad about working at the office. There just needs to be this mix in the middle. And I think that you guys have done that for a very long time, because there are certain IT professionals you work with that they just can't take the time to go to the office to do all that. And so you have those opportunities. And then there's some that probably just need to walk away. I think we all get that way. We need to just walk away from our computer for a little bit, and they welcome a little bit of a break and maybe some face-to-face interaction, or maybe you guys are going out to lunch or coffee or whatever to discuss things. Yeah. And so I think that we can really adapt what we've learned in the last few months in very positive ways.
Yeah, and so I think you're saying what I said earlier. Like, your wife, is she more efficient? She putting in more time than she would because she's not, in the back and forth of the commute. And like you said, the water cooler talk, right? That doesn't exist anymore. So is she more efficient now, Eric?
Oh yeah, and here's the one thing that is really, really beneficial is that when she wants to take a break, she will take a break, and then she'll go out and do a little bit of yard work. She'll do something around the house that makes her feel like she's accomplishing something else, which she is. Plus, she gets out in the sun. She loves to work in the yard. I don't so much, but that's her gig. I like to do all the things on the inside, but she just loves it. And so it really re-energizes her, where, like you were talking about earlier, she used to work through lunch mostly. Right. And she'd get off an hour early if she wanted to, but usually she had more work to get done. But she doesn't do that anymore. She'll take a lunch break. She'll go and lay on the hammock outside and get a little bit of sun for 15 minutes, come back in, and she's completely re-energized, and she's go. So it's been fantastic.
That's all. Yeah, you need that downtime to decompress. And, I think corporate America embraces that. They have a lot of walking paths in a lot of the campuses and things like that, where if you just, look, maybe you're not going to take the hour lunch break, but you go out and take a walk with your friends, or just take a walk for a little while. Maybe you call your kids on your phone just to get your head out of work. It's just a good habit in general to have it. It's really cool that she does the gardening or landscaping thing, because there's a Zen moment, and you need those during your day. Just a tiny bit of downtime can reinvigorate you from the day in, day out doldrums that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to change gears here just a little bit and go back to kind of the 08-09 situation and then this last situation with COVID. From what I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard is, and we saw a lot of people do this, in 08 and 09, a lot of people panicked and got out of the market, right? When it crashed, they were just like, I'm out, I can't do this. Like, this is not good. Yep. But I think a lot of people learned lessons from that, and they saw the devastation that people caused themselves because they were trying to, again, time the market. You've got to get it right twice, like you've said many times. And I heard that during this last issue with the pandemic, the Black Swan event that happened, that a lot more people actually stayed in. And I don't know if that's because most people now are working with advisors, or they learned some lessons even if they're not working with advisors, and they say, I got to leave it. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I do believe that people did learn from 08 to 09 that a stop clock is right twice a day. And I would tell my clients, like, think of it like if you're Rip Van Winkle. Remember the guy that fell asleep and woke up, it's not like 100 years later or whatever it was? Imagine if you had slept through the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. I don't remember the exact date when the markets were back to even from that. I should know that number, and I will for our next podcast. But imagine if you had just fallen asleep for a couple of years, starting in October of 2008. And then you woke up a bunch of years later, and you look at your portfolio, and you're like, it's the same amount. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be worried, right?
Yeah.
It's what you go through that's the killer. Like we saw assets decrease, depending on what you're looking at, 30, 40, 50% in '08 to '09. And I think this time around, COVID-19 in 2020, I think that people were more aware of, if I just leave it alone, it'll come back. Mm-hmm. Listen, now there are people who are just nervous by nature or very loss averse by nature. And those people wanted us to do certain things for them. And some of them I tried to talk out of, and some of them wouldn't listen. And that's okay. You don't need this money for a while, 10 years plus. And your risk tolerance is taken into account, meaning what your aptitude or your likability or dislikability for risk is when we design the portfolio. And I would always say to the client, look, you want to pull out, but you are in a more conservative portfolio. That was done by design. Mm-hmm. So as long as the shoe fits, as long as it's a good portfolio, good portfolio match for that person, they really shouldn't panic. But there are those that did. What was really interesting about COVID-19, and here's what I would say was the main difference, and this drove us crazy. Remember, the world was getting shut down. No one was going to work. We were considered essential, thank God, right? Mm-hmm. Because we manage assets and we can do it remote and, all those kind of things. Yeah. The markets go on, right? So we were considered essential. What had happened was the people that were not working or businesses were shut down, they were glued to the television. Yeah. And they were looking at the market all day long. And guess what that prompted?
Fear, panic, bad decisions.
Right? Phone calls to their advisor, right?
Oh, yeah.
So our phone was ringing off the hook, and you got people going, what does it mean when oil goes negative or $0 per barrel? And what is it? And you're answering all these questions. And my dad used to have a saying, and he would say, Tony rode a pony. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Now,
I'm lost.
Dad, I need help. Tony rode a pony. What it meant was, so my dad was in the Marines, and he was an attorney. So he's a commissioned officer, and he was JAG, right? Judge Advocate General. Mm-hmm. And he was stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which happens to be where I was born. He was active duty during the Vietnam War. Going back to my birthday again. How about that? So Dad said one of his trials, he was trying to defend a soldier who was brought up on some charges, across the pond, and he was like, all this data and all this research and all this and that and this and that. I have this, Your Honor, and I have that, Your Honor, and this. And the judge goes, wait a minute, time out. Counselors approach the bench. So the two attorneys walk up to the bench. My dad was one of them, and he looks at my father and he goes, listen, just make it Tony rode a pony. Got it? Tony rode a pony. We don't need all this hoopla. Just Tony rode a pony, right? So that is like a light bulb that clicks on in my brain. When things get super complicated and too complex, and the phone's ringing from COVID-19, people just staring at their TVs and watching the markets, and oil going to $0 a barrel, and stocks plummeting, and this and that happening, I always go back to Tony rode a pony. And I say to my clients, what do you care about all that? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, we did a financial plan for you. We know that you're not retiring for another 15 years. We know that you want to move to Boca Raton. So what do you care about what's going on in the markets right now? Well, it's got me crazy, and I want to just look. No, we measured your risk tolerance when we started working together. We measure it every year. We reviewed your plan every year. We rebalance your investments every quarter. Yeah, these things happen. Like you said, these black swan events are going to happen. Nothing you can do about them. But you can make sure your clients are prepared for them. Make sure the hand fits in the glove. Make sure the risk tolerance is there. Don't overcomplicate it. Tony rode a pony.
I think that's fantastic. The only thing I was thinking about when you were saying that was watching media. It's exactly Tony Rode a Pony, because if you look at the letters, it's a trap.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's a trap. It sucks you in, and it's not positive. They're there to sell.
Oh, you're writing. You're going with Tony Rode a Pony as that's the act. That's why you get paid the big bucks, buddy. Good job.
I'm just saying.
I am all over that. Now, can I buy that from you, or
is
it mine?
It's yours. It's a gift. Happy birthday.
That is so trap. That's it, though. Don't fall into the trap. Tony Rode a Pony.
That's right.
I love you, man.
You got it. Happy birthday, my man.
I was just going to say, you just gave me a nice little gift here. Thank you.
That's right. All right,
Awesome.
and we're wrapping up our time here, and of course that cues us for one specific event, not a Black Swan event, by the way. It's a good event. You're going to look into that crystal ball of yours. Are you ready?
I sure am. I am.
All right. Why don't you take a look for us?
It did it last podcast. Let me try this again.
What are you going to try? What?
I got to do it once more. It's not coming in.
Give it a good shake this time. Give it a good shake.
I'm shaking it.
All right.
Shaking it.
Oh.
Eric,
Mike,
we have a problem.
that didn't sound good, dude.
No, it wasn't good, but we'll make it better for the next podcast. I promise.
All right.
Sorry, everyone at home.
So those that are listening that are thinking about buying Mike a birthday present, new crystal ball might be on the list.
I'm in the market now,
You're in the
unfortunately.
market. Okay. I heard you can go to Craigslist and find those. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah, but mine used to work. I don't know if the ones on Craigslist are going to work or not.
True. Yeah. You never know. You never know. Could be some shady ones out there. All right, my man. Well, happy birthday.
I'm so sorry to everybody at home, Eric. I'm totally. I got a lot of mess to clean up here. We got to wrap up.
Well, you dropped the ball, right? I mean,
literally.
Yeah, literally.
You're on a roll today, buddy. Oh my God.
I'm just saying. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. This was a fantastic podcast, and I appreciate you spending some of your birthday day with me. I mean, that's a gift to me as well.
No, it was a pleasure doing it, Eric, as usual. Thank you, buddy.
You betcha. And the last thank you, of course, goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Rewire and Retire podcast with Mike Guarino. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Mike comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Guarino Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewire and Retire podcast. If you want to learn more about how we can help troubleshoot your financial and retirement strategies, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Guarino Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA/SIPC.